Did you know Super Awesome Mix has an app? Go to the Apple App Store today and download Super Awesome Mix. It's free. You could start creating and sending your own digital mixtapes in just a few clicks. Also, there's links to our Instagram account and a link where you can follow your favorite podcast. Speaking of which, welcome back to another Super Awesome Mix. My name is Matt Sidholm, alongside my co-host and co-founder of Super Awesome Mix, Samer Abu Salvi. Samer, how we doing this week?
Like just the best of the whole year. That's how I'm doing.
You're peaking
because
right now.
I'm peaking. Yeah. We did it. Another season wrapping up. Can you believe it? Season 2 coming to a close.
No, it feels like it's flown by. So yeah, I mean, this is our best of. So this is the best of 2022. We decided last year this was a really popular episode for us, so we decided to kind of supersize it, and each of us picked our 12 favorite songs of the year. And so this is actually going to be a two-part episode. We're just going to kind of roll through it, but you'll hear the first 12 songs, the 6 from each of us this week. And then next week, you'll hear 6 other songs from each of us. And so you'll get 24 of the best songs from 2022. And then, Samer, we're going to take a couple of weeks off.
We are, yes. As much as I love coming every single week to record for all of you, I just kind of get tired of seeing Matt every week, and I just need a break,
Well, I think that people can relate to that. So I think that
yeah,
they feel your pain. So what we're going to do the last couple of weeks of the year, we're going to run a couple of our best episodes from the year, probably our most popular one. So we're still figuring out which ones those are. So, share the podcast with your friends. If there's one episode you want to hear again in those last couple of weeks, share it around. So it could be one of our top 2 episodes of the year. And then we'll be back the first week of January with an all new Super Awesome Mix Season 3, if you can believe that.
Oh, I can't wait. It's going to be a good one. Well, let's dive in. We're going to kick it off with your choice first. And you went with Boy by The Killers.
Yeah, so The Killers didn't have a new album in 2022, but they did release this single somewhat recently. And it was actually written, I think, before their last album. I think that's what they said, is that they kind of wrote this song and then put it aside and then kind of went through their most recent album a year ago, which was very different from their previous stuff. It was still really good, but very different. And then this kind of falls into your classic sort of killer sound, that sort of heavy synth kind of rhythm to it. It reminded me of like Erasure. I mean, it almost sounded exactly like Erasure. And I kind of searched around to see if maybe they had just sampled it. And then someone was like, no, they didn't sample it. They just made it good. Like something like that. There were a couple snarky comments about that where people weren't huge Erasure fans, but
sure,
it definitely reminded me of that. But no, this is a great song. It's a really cool message. It's kind of talking to this, they even say 16-year-old, boy, right? And just telling him to slow down and all that. And it's something I've observed having kids of my own versus like my own childhood. It's like everything seems to be more accelerated now for kids. So I really kind of appreciated the message here of slow down and, don't overthink it, all those things that they kind of let out. And then it's just a great, a lot of great energy in this song too. So loved it. So I hope this kind of rolls into a new Killers album, maybe in 2023.
Yeah, I agree. It totally had a great killer sound. I also wrote that it has such an 80s vibe, like especially in the second verse, it really like comes through. It just like this electro pop synth magic just blasting through the speakers. And I was like, this is fantastic. So I love that mashup of that 80s throwback sound with the voice of the Killers. I also really like the line, small town, only diesels dance. These streets weren't meant to house jet fuel engine dreams. And I really appreciate that because, again, I think he's also talking about someone being in a small town. I think specifically growing up in Utah and like just wanting to kind of feel like you're a little bit bigger than where you grew up. And so I really love that. Something that, I think a lot of people can relate to. And it's funny because I don't even think it has to always do with it being actually a small town. I just think sometimes you feel like you just want to leave, like wherever you grow up, you're like, something is calling me out there. So just love the idea of like a diesel town versus jet engine dream. So really
Well, it
nice
could
pick.
even be like a community. It doesn't even need to be like
Right.
kind of a small desolate town. It's just like sometimes the community you're in, you may feel like you don't fit in, right? Like you have
Yeah,
kind of bigger
totally.
dreams than whatever community you're in, even if that community happens to be part of, New York City or Dallas, Tech, either one of the, kind of big cities you and I live in.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
all right. So your first pick on your best of, you went with Happiness by the Black Keys.
Yeah, funny enough, my most played track, of the entire year according to Apple Music, because that's what I primarily listen on, is Wild Thing off of the same album, but I didn't just wanna go with, that one because that was, like, that was their single release off the album, their first one. I'm sure people have heard a lot, but I mean, every song in this album is amazing, and I really tried to pick songs that, like, you could listen to the whole album and enjoy it. This one is really great. I love the messaging of this one. I love the opening heavy notes to this song. Like it just is so like bluesy and has this wonderful like heavy distorted guitar sound. But yeah, like the lyrics here, really kind of speaking about, I think probably specifically about a relationship of like you got to do the hard thing of like leaving a relationship because happiness waits for you, and like you're kind of the only reason that it's not like you're not getting it. And again, I always kind of generalize a relationship doesn't have to be like a romantic relationship. It could be a relationship with your job, with yourself, with, your environment, whatever it might be. But I think, a theme for me this year has truly just been like go out for the thing that you want, because it's waiting for you and like you can absolutely do it. So, whenever he sings, you got to do the thing you don't want to do, and even if it's going to ruin what you had, if what you had was bad, say the words you don't want to say and find the nerve to stop delaying happiness. It isn't known to us. So yeah, like stop making excuses. It's probably going to be painful. It's probably going to cause some change and disruption in your life, but like happiness awaits you. So I love that about this song, both lyrically and musically. It's a great track.
Yeah, at first when I was listening to it, I was like, "Is this happiness in like an ironic sense?" Like it didn't sound very happy. But then I agree with you. The lyrics kind of lay out almost a roadmap to happiness, right? And,
Mhm.
and whether or not the character in this song or the person listening to this song follows that roadmap remains to be seen, right? But it does kind of, I think, lay that out. So it was really, I thought they did it in a really interesting way because you could almost listen to it depending maybe on your mindset. You could either see it as sort of a, really like great advice. And then the other one is almost kind of making it feel like you're trapped in some way. So
Right.
I thought they did a great job kind of laying that out in a really like much more complex song maybe than it initially seemed.
Yeah, I agree. I like that a lot. I hadn't really considered that. I just love all things Black Keys, so I never stopped to think that it couldn't be anything but amazing. Um, Not that you're not saying that. Anyway, it's all good. I'm glad you liked it. Let's move on to track 3. I was really excited to see this pick because this is always, we talk a lot about how unique it is to be able to interview some of the musicians of the music we pick. So, you went with "We're on Fire" by previous guest Joshua Dylan Ballas.
Yeah, Josh was on the show earlier this year. We actually have another track coming up later of a former guest as well. So what I did is I went through my new music mixes. So when I was putting together my list and just started picking songs off that. So people are probably going to recognize some of the songs on my side of the list just from previous things. And I think you did that with a couple tracks as well.
Mhm.
But yeah, when I went back and listened to this, I was like, man, this is still just a great song. Like, it says the lyric that stood out to me when I re-listened to this again, and I listened to it a bunch leading up to the interview with him, and then obviously went back preparing for this show. But he says, "I'm whispering the truth because it could kill me." And that lyric, and I don't know if I called it out the first time, but again, it's like that one again stood out to me, and I just loved it. The other thing that was amazing was, we listened to the song, then we interview the artist, and then, a few months later, when I went back and listened to this, I was like, he doesn't sound anything like this when you talk to him. And
Right.
he's got such a great singing voice, but then like we were on the interview with him, and he doesn't have a bad voice, but it's just you would not think talking to this guy that he's going to sound like this when he starts singing. And
Absolutely.
his voice, it doesn't quite match up, but I mean his voice is just great, and so that's the other thing that stood out here. So We wish him a lot of success. We're really excited and glad to have him on the best of 2022 list here.
Yeah. Oh, I love all of that. Yeah, it's so funny when that happens, like, when their singing voice is very different than their talking voice. He was such a pleasure to have on the show. I think back to that recording a lot. It was so much fun. If you haven't listened to that episode, be sure to check it out. It's, like, several back in our catalog, but you'll find it this year easily. Yeah, it's a beautiful song. I really enjoyed listening to it again. I just find it, like, so calming in a way. It's just a very beautiful song. He has a great voice. So, yeah, like I said, I was really happy whenever I saw that you put this on your best of.
All right, now I probably could have made a list of artists that you were going to include on your best of 2022 just based on our conversations. And so I was not at all surprised to see these guys on the list. So your next pick is Wolf by the Yeah Yeah Yeahs.
Yes, or yeah. I Again, oh my gosh, whenever I learned this year that they had a new album coming out for the first time in 9 years, I got super excited because I love them so much. So, I mean, that's a long time to be off from doing something, right? Like, 9-year break is intense. We've got, like, a 2-week break coming up, and I feel like whenever we sit down to record, I'm gonna be like, "Wait, how does this work again?"
We're going to be totally out of rhythm on that first show. Yeah, after 2 weeks off.
Right, and so to take 9 years away and then come back and just produce just an amazing album, time really did them well. I love this song in particular, and it's funny, there's probably a theme in a lot of my picks is, like, they all have really powerful outros. I'm such a sucker for very powerful outros, and this is one where, it definitely, like, builds up and it gets so loud, and it's just one I've had on repeat all year long ever since it came out. This one and Burning off of the same album, have both just been on repeat, and I've really enjoyed listening to them, but I just love also, I think it more or less ends kind of abruptly, not completely, but, like, it just all of a sudden is loud, and then the last, like, 4 seconds, it's, like, not, and I really enjoy that too, so yeah, and, a song just all about going in the wild and the story of a wolf, and so, wolves being one of my favorite animals, I was drawn to it for that reason too. Great track, great album.
Yeah, I thought this was really, really unique. I love the sound of it. And yeah, I wrote down this could be on a Halloween mix if we were going to do another Halloween mix, just based on the sound of it. And obviously, just talking about thematically, just a wolf. But
Mhm.
also, like, I just love the lyrics in heaven, lost my taste for hell. Like, I really thought that was a really cool, dichotomy. Could have been talking about, like, we talked about relationships earlier. Could be talking about a bad
Right.
relationship, like just getting out of hell and
Yes,
going to heaven,
exactly.
feeling pretty good about that. But yeah, really cool track. I think Burning is the one people are probably more familiar with. I think that's getting some radio play, at least on like
Mhm.
Sirius and stuff like that. But yeah, this was a great one, and I got to check out the whole album. I know you've been talking about it for a while, but I've got to just sit down and listen to the whole thing.
Yeah, you definitely need to, and you're gonna tell me when you do. It's your homework assignment. Stop making empty promises, Matt. Um, just kidding, of course. We do listen to a lot of music here. All right, track 5. You went with another pick from earlier this year. "Make Me a Believer" by Yellow Wolf and Shooter Jennings.
Yeah. Again, revisiting this song, just love the energy from it, and just the whole theme of it. I think at the time when we recorded, when we put it on the new music mix, I described it as like a more listenable version of like Kid Rock, like that kind of feel to
Mhm.
it. But yeah, one of the verses that stood out to me, the second to last one this time around, was "At the club with the promiscuous women, cigarette smoke and cocaine selling. I may be the child of a man in prison, but at least I ain't no G damn gimmick." And I thought that was awesome, just calling out all these quote unquote cool things, but then just saying they're like kind of cliche and like,
Right.
you're kind of a joke. All these things out there. And these are two artists that are kind of off the beaten path a little bit, but they've found their own inroad to success. Like, it's hard to kind of qualify what kind of music this is, whether it's country, rock, some version of that, and or even kind of Americana, because either one of them could slow it down a little bit. Um, but yeah, really, really good song, I think, and they did a whole album together, and I thought the whole album was really strong. So definitely want to feature this one again.
Yeah, no, it's really nice. It's funny because at the time, just playing through, I didn't know that you had picked songs that you had previously featured, and I was like, "Wait a minute, I know this song. I've heard this before." And I think I went through the exact same journey listening to it a second time as I did the first time. I'd been like, "Okay, yeah, I kinda like this," and then listening to the lyrics, I was like, "Oh, I love these lyrics. These are great." And I compared the notes that I wrote this time around, and they were almost identical to the notes I wrote the first time around. So sometimes you come back to a song and it's a little bit different. Sometimes you come back to it and it's apparently the exact same. So there's something I don't know what that says about it in either direction, but that just is what it is.
Yeah, what I found when I did that is I was like, some of them hit a little differently, but also like I remembered why I picked them the first time. And I was like, man, I do really like this song. Like this was one of my favorite songs that I discovered this year. And that's why I kind of
Yeah,
put them back on the mix, like just to highlight that.
nice.
All right, so your next pick, again, this could have been on my bingo card for 2022. You went with Different Kind of World by Maggie Rogers.
Yeah, shout out again, as always, to Jen, another co-host of the Super Awesome Mix podcast network. She has her own show, What Are You Listening To? If you're not already following that, please be sure to do so. It's a lot of fun. And Matt and I make appearances on that show often, so it's good stuff. But yeah, I credit her with kind of introducing me, and I think to both of us, to Maggie Rogers and like how amazing and talented this woman is. Um, this is I think the last track on like the non-deluxe version of her album. It's like track 12, and on the other one is like 12 of 14, I believe. But just a gorgeous song. I think again a lot of the other theme of picks I have is reflecting on kind of the state of the world and us having a lot of these songs were written during the pandemic or during like kind of peak pandemic, and it's just like I don't know, lingering, and it hasn't found a way to kind of completely clear. And so the world can kind of feel overwhelming sometimes. But as she says in this song, she writes, "My knees are aching, back is breaking, thinking about the state of the world. When we're riding all together, it's a different kind of world." And so I like this idea of like whenever we come together, like we make things better. And whenever maybe that's one person in your life that can help, make your day a little bit better, or a whole community or a whole world coming together. Like I think that's what's really cool. And it's just really beautiful. And I again love the outro to this song because it gets really loud and you want to like turn it up, and it kind of reminds me of Billie Eilish's "Happier Than Ever" in that way, because it starts really soft and then it just becomes this like whole other song at the end. So this is an album I've had definitely start to finish on repeat the most, I think, of all of these different albums that I feature, and it's just because she's so talented. I love it.
Yeah, this was great, and I love her voice. But I thought what was really cool about this one is near the end, you called out those lyrics, "When we're riding all together, it's a different kind of world," and then she changes it right after that, and the second part becomes, "I'm a different kind of girl," and then the music lifts, and I thought that was such a cool like change of the line to kind of say like I don't know. I kind of took it as like she's ready for this different kind of world, right? And then sort of the music
Mhm.
lifts up. It almost seemed triumphant in a way, and you get into the big outro like you described. But I love that little change in lyric there at the end that led to the big outro. That was really well done. But yeah, all her stuff is really well done, and she's only like 20 years old or something like
I
that. So I think we've got a lot of good stuff ahead from Maggie
know.
Rogers.
Absolutely, yeah. Nice call out. I hadn't caught that, but you're right. The lyric is different. That's really cool. I like that a lot. All right, track 7. Funny enough, again, another one where I was like, "Wait a minute, I know this song," and I compared notes again. Um, so this is a photograph by Kevin Morby.
Yeah, and this is great. There's a couple tracks on here that I kind of made the note of. It's a great like year-end song, like kind of good reflective song. And this is one of those. So like the song's called This Is a Photograph, and the artist Kevin Morby here, he just describes, it's as if you're going through a stack of photographs and he's just describing what is in that picture and kind of the memories that come with that exercise if you've ever gone through that. And it sounds like he's going through maybe a stack of photographs, like physical photographs. And so there's a cadence to it, but certainly you could probably apply the same thing if you're kind of going back and looking at photos from the year past, or photos of a loved one you haven't seen in a while, or who's passed on, either way. But just kind of that type of thing, that reflection. I love this song, and again, kind of going back and listening to it again, I was just like, man, he just kind of nails the experience so well, and this is so well done, not just lyrically, but just musically, and the cadence of it. I thought just really struck me. So yeah, definitely worth. And his whole album is great. Like the album he put out this year, and I'm forgetting the title right now, but definitely worth looking into. And we even reached out to try to get him on the show. It didn't quite work out, but who knows? Maybe in 2023.
I think actually the album is this title track. It's called "This Is a Photograph." That's the name of the album. Because you had said he's from Lubbock, right?
I think so. Yeah,
Lubbock,
yeah,
Texas.
that's right. He
Yeah,
he mentions West Texas in the song. Yeah, and so yep.
right. Nice. No, it's true. Like I really I like this song a lot. I think you're absolutely spot on about how he really captures that. I just love the line over and over. It's like, this is what I'll miss about being alive. I just think that's such an interesting line to sing, right? Like, kind of reflecting into the future of when you're gone and thinking about how you're going to miss it. But like, you are alive now. And, there's like something there to be said about maybe, all of us trying to be more present and be more grateful and like all that kind of stuff. Like, that's how I would interpret a line like that. So, really, really cool. There's parts of it too that kind of remind me of Cake a little bit.
Yes, yeah, that's a
The
good call
artist.
out. Yeah, yeah,
And I really like that. I feel like Cake is having like a revival lately because I believe Billie Eilish said that she's been listening to them, and so now everyone's like, "Oh my god, let's all listen to Cake." But like, and I'm all here for that. Like, that's great. Like, I loved that band.
yeah. But that is kind of funny that it's like they're this really talented, hardworking band. They've been in it for a while. Then it's like, now what was the turning point for you guys? Let's see. When this woman 20 years our junior said she liked us.
Right. I mean, it's kind of like the Kate Bush running up the hill moment,
Yes,
with
right?
Stranger Things. So I don't know if you are, if you're like Jimmy Fallon listening to this podcast, go ahead, give us a shout out. Just tell
Yeah,
people you're listening to this podcast. Like, we'd really
right.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
we
Come
are,
on, Jimmy.
we are
All right.
not. Yeah, come on, come on, come on. You should do it.
All right. Your next pick, you went with I Don't Know How I Survive by Death Cab for Cutie.
Yeah, this definitely was on the bingo card, right? Like, if
Yeah,
Death
this
Cab for Cutie
definitely is.
releases
This is like
a new album,
this is the center square in my Sammer bingo card. Like this is
right? The
just the
free
free
space,
play. Yeah, it's gonna be there. I mean,
right?
just like Bruce is the center play for your bingo card for me,
Right.
like same thing.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is the opening track off of their album that they released earlier this year, Asphalt Meadows. And again, I try to pick a different song from what I picked on previous episodes, but the whole album I've had just like unsurprisingly on repeat. This is one again that was like recorded and written, during pandemic and during lockdown, and you hear that a lot because like literally the title is "I Don't Know How I Survive." And it's, he's talking about these struggles of kind of dealing with the world, and like you reach a point where you're just kind of burned out. Like, if you're like me, you are just, you're definitely kind of frayed at the edges, and you just keep going. Like, you find a way to keep going. And so um I really like resonate with that. And I just think again, like, the outro is really cool. How it kind of builds up into this thing and this chaotic energy. And I think that that's again part of, the theme of it all, of like, you just reach this point where you kind of just want to scream a little bit. And you don't know how you keep going, but you keep going. So yeah, that's why I love this track. But and again, I love the whole album, and it's been popular for me for some time now.
This was I thought this was kind of cool at first because I felt like it started out kind of upbeat and peppy, and then the lyrics kick in and it's like, well, maybe that's not what they're expressing here, and you kind of listen through it, and then it gets a little more frenzied as it goes along. So it really does a
Hmm.
good job of sort of matching the lyrics through the whole thing, because it's not, this isn't an upbeat situation that they're going through, right? But it's obviously not a slow song either.
Right.
So I think they do a good job of that, of kind of matching up whatever's going on here with the panic or anxiety that he's feeling in these lyrics.
Yeah, no, I agree. I love the frenzied nature at the end, and that was perfect. Talking about a song that is completely different vibe, from that one, you went with "Green Green Grass" by George Ezra.
Yeah, so This was I'm realizing now as we're reading through this and then thinking about a couple other tracks I have on my list. I have a lot of songs kind of like sort of brushing up against like reflection and like even death kind of as themes. But then I think back in 2022, and I actually lost two friends this year. So that's probably kind of why it's top of mind as far as like songs that sort of spoke to me. But yeah, this one by George Ezra, who has had some success, in the past, a lot of radio hits. I don't think this one got much radio play, but I thought his new album was really cool. But I just kept coming back to this song, which was really about throwing a party after someone dies, and not in a and just sort of celebrating that person's life, and really kind of emphasizing that part of it instead of just kind of the sadness for that person being gone. And yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I've had some experience with that recently, but in both cases, it really was as we kind of sat around and talked about that person, it kind of went into this just you start telling these old stories and you're just laughing, and you are really celebrating that person. So yeah, just love this song. This one really stuck out to me. So yeah, good stuff.
Yeah, I really like that, and this is one where, again, I had kind of similar take on it this go around, but I noticed something new this time. But I agree. I think, like, celebrating people's life and their death is, like, such a magical kind of beautiful thing to do. There's that sadness there, but then there is, like, that joy of just, you got to be a part of their life, and they got to be a part of yours, and that can be really powerful. But the line that I don't know how I missed this lyric, in the second verse, but I just really love it so much, and he sings, "We go together, Adam and Eve, but the girl is so much more than just another apple thief," which I love that. Yeah, she's a genius. Watch and learn how she sets the world on fire just to watch the sucker burn. And I just love that whole verse right there. I just think it's so cool, and I especially love calling Eve an apple thief because it's just so simple.
Right, right.
In such a loaded story that has been pulled apart for ages, it's
Yes.
like, "Oh, yeah, Eve the apple
She's
thief." I
just an
just think that
apple
there's
thief.
such a simplicity to that.
Yes.
That's awesome.
All right. Track 10. Again, another bingo card spot. This is Daffodil by Florence and the Machine.
Yeah, on my Spotify Wrapped, it was, like, basically, you only listened to Florence and the Machine this year. And and it was not wrong. I listened to her a lot. Her album, of course, Dance Fever, I've talked to death about many of her songs on it. I have not talked about this one yet, so that's why I wanna make sure I've, floated this one at least in best of the year. But, another song about struggling with the world and the pandemic and dealing with everything that goes along with it, and, I love that the chorus is literally her just thinking daffodil, and she even has a note in an interview where she's like, so unsure that you could even do that, where it's like, "Can a chorus just be one word?" Like, that you just sing over and over? She's like, "I don't know, let's try it." And I just love that, that even she, like, was experimenting with this idea of having a chorus literally just be a word. Um, and, daffodils are actually kind of like the name, of the flower narcissus, I believe in English, let's call it English or American English or English American language or whatever. No, English language. That was really difficult for me to say. Not the American version of English, but like English, English.
Well, also ironic that you were talking about the English language and having a difficult time with
Right.
it. Yeah. That's
It's really hard. Anyway, and Narcissus, of course, is the story of, the person who, like, drowned himself in the river. And so it's just an interesting thing of, like, why she picked daffodils and that whole thing, but love the outro. There's a part in the outro where it's just like this banging sound, and like it's every time I listen to it, I just kind of want to like air drum alongside with it because I really get into it. And again, and like the lyrics are just so powerful and they've really resonated. She sings, "A generation soaked in grief. We're drying out and hanging on by the skin of our teeth. I never thought it would get this far, this somewhat drunken joke. Sometimes I see so much beauty, I don't think that I can cope." And again, just like the juxtaposition of these two things of like, being soaked in grief, but then also there's still so much beauty that you struggle to cope with all of it. And I just, she's truly like a poet in a lot of her lyrics, and her voice does a lot of this stuff justice. So absolutely love it. Huge Florence and the Machine fan. Can't wait to see her in concert.
Yeah, this was a good one. I didn't make the connection with Narcissus. That's really cool. I love that little connection there. But yeah, I mean, the thing here, her voice, I don't, and not that that's surprising. I mean, I've always loved her voice, but just I don't know in this track especially before it really kind of kicks in there, like just at the beginning, I just think, I mean, I just loved every part of that intro part of it. And I know you're a big outro guy. Maybe I'm more of an intro guy. Maybe that's why we kind of mesh well. But I just think, yeah,
I
that
like
part
that.
really stood out to me. And it also kind of had the whole song kind of had a little bit of an eerie feeling to it. And maybe that kind of matches up with the, um, sort of overwhelmingness that is described there. But yeah, just a great song. Really liked it.
Just a quick side note here, whenever we write our, like, how we succeeded in business, that'll be, like, the intro and outro, like, find out if you're an intro or an outro guy, and then
Mm.
find your partner who compliments you. That'll be our whole shtick
And then if we
for
write a book about that, I'll write the foreword and you'll write the afterword.
there you go.
And then we'll have a
Oh,
ghostwriter
that's
just fill in the
amazing.
rest. Yeah, I mean,
Of
we
course.
won't
I mean,
actually
that's how
write
this
it.
thing's
That's how it works.
yeah,
Yeah.
who can write a
No,
book? There's no
it's
time.
not really possible. Yeah.
Moving on to track 11, which is appropriately called "Here's to Moving On" by Dashboard Confessional.
Yeah, this one I thought was perfect for like the end of the year too. I mean, this whole the chorus is just a series of like kind of New Year's resolutions, right? It's, here's to fighting less and talking more. And then here's to moving on. I mean, so it's like, you look back at your year and there's probably some highlights and some lowlights and all that, but you got to kind of keep moving forward and into the next year. So, thought this was appropriate for the time of year, but also just in looking back, and I always think it's cool when bands we haven't heard from in a while kind of come out with something new that's really distinctive and notable. So I had to give them some love here.
Absolutely, yeah, and again, as I said, I think in my first go around, I love that this is, like, truly a Dashboard Confessional song, like, it sounds like a lot of their, like, earlier stuff, it sticks to that, which is great because I loved all of that, and I agree, like, I love the message, and he talks a lot about, like, the purpose of the song is, like, that sense that, yes, things might knock you down, but you're always the one that gets back up, and so it's that reminder of, like, whatever's got you down, like, you have the power to get back up, even if it feels really hard, like, you find a way, so really like that. Beautiful song.
All right, so track 12, you've got Black Summer by Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Yeah, this was their lead single off of their 12th studio album, and I think they even had a 13th this year, and by I think, I mean I know for sure because we talked about another track off of it. But yes, this album, Unlimited Love, this song, Black Summer, which I learned, I really just enjoyed the song. I like how it sounds. It always reminded me of a Red Hot Chili Pepper song. This was like the band reuniting again, kind of, with Anthony Kiedis back in. And I didn't realize that the lyrics are actually about, quote unquote, "the Black Summer," which is like the fires in 2019 and 2020 in Australia that just kind of ravaged the country. And in learning about that, I was like, or not learning, but remembering that, I just had this moment of reflection of like, oh my goodness, right? Like there was that natural awful disaster that we all went through. And then it was immediately followed by another disaster, which was followed by another disaster. And it's like, it's a little
Yeah,
overwhelming,
yeah.
to just think through how much stuff we're kind of all dealing with on this planet, like constantly. And I think that, if your theme is reflection, mine is certainly just like trying to catch my breath and trying to remind, like deal with a lot of the stuff that's been happening. So, but outside of all of that and outside of the theme, I just really like the song and it has a great guitar solo in the middle because of course it does. And I just think the chorus is super catchy despite the really like dark subject matter here that he's singing about.
Yeah, I hadn't even dug that deep into the lyrics. You've introduced me to a lot more of Red Hot Chili Peppers. And I mean, I've always kind of known them, right? Like they've been around forever, and
Sure.
I know a lot of their songs. And I think it's interesting because like Anthony Kiedis and Flea are kind of the big celebrities from the band, but the more
Hmm.
songs I've listened to from them, like to me, it's all John Frusciante. Like the guitar solos and everything. That's almost what I look forward to now when I listen to Red Hot Chili
Right.
Peppers. I'm just like, I just get to the guitar part. Like, what's he gonna do in this track?
Yeah, yeah, I love
So
that.
it's really kind of shifted for me. Not that anybody listens to a song for like the bass line necessarily, but like Flea is a pretty popular guy, right? Like he's in the Star Wars stuff and all the other things. Like he
Right,
does a
right.
lot of he does a lot of other things, so he's a much bigger name. But yeah, I just think musically he's the guy who has really stood out to me the more I listen to this band. That was part one of our best of 2022. We'll be back next week with the rest of our best of 2022. So for Sammer, this is Matt, and we'll see you then. Super Awesome Mix is brought to you by DLM. Make shopping easy with DLM, the one-stop shop for all your casual clothing needs. Shop dlmsupplyco.com and enter the promo code AWESOME at checkout to save 15% off your first purchase. That's dlmsupplyco.com.